Dr. Grant Patrick. The Redheads, Unforgettable Grandpa's Fairy Tales. Chapter 1. The Whispering Woods Awakening. The sun rose slowly over the treetops, casting a gentle glow through the dense forest canopy. Beams of light filtered down, illuminating a group of small, determined figures with bright red hair and beards, the Redheads, as they were called. Their little faces, ruddy and freckled, shone with determination and camaraderie. They stood together in a unified circle, surrounding the forest clearing as they whispered their morning blessing to the woods. Their leader, Liam, a strong-willed redhead with a sturdy build and a voice that carried the wisdom of the woods, raised his arms. "This land is ours to protect," he began, his tone imbued with the quiet reverence the Redheads held for the forest. "Its heartbeat is ours, its struggles are our duty." The others, from Ronan to little Aisling, stood silently, feeling the truth of those words resonate in their hearts. Today was not just another day of tending to plants, feeding the animals, or repairing the enchanted cobblestone paths that wound through the forest. Today, they had sensed an unusual disturbance in the woods, a whisper of unease that echoed through the roots, the leaves, even the animals' soft footfalls. Something had shifted, and it was up to the Redheads to find it and set it right. As they dispersed into groups, Patrick, the nobleman of the Redheads, strode forward with a glint of worry in his eyes. "Liam, do you sense that unusual tension near the western woods? The vines, they are restless." Liam nodded gravely. "I do, Patrick. And I fear it might be more than just the vines. There's a shadow hanging over the whispering woods today." He turned to a slender, bright-eyed redhead named Aisling. "Can you gather the herbs, Aisling? We may need to prepare the healing ointments early." Aisling nodded, a determined look crossing her face. "Of course, Liam. I'll collect the herbs from the glade where the sun is strongest." Meanwhile, Sean and Declan, the mischievous but brave-hearted members of the group, volunteered to scout ahead, their small packs filled with tools for defense and survival. "We'll be back before noon," said Declan with a confident grin. As each redhead went about their assigned task, a sense of purpose filled the air. The Redheads moved swiftly but silently, their footfalls barely touching the moss-covered ground. The forest was their friend, and each creature within it knew their scent, their purpose, and their kind hearts. But when Sean and Declan returned sooner than expected, their faces were tense with concern. "Liam," Sean said, catching his breath, "we found something strange, twisted vines, reaching out like claws, covering the path leading to the elder oak." Liam's eyes darkened with worry. The elder oak was the heart of the forest, the oldest and wisest of all trees. It was said that the oak could speak, sharing secrets of the past with those pure of heart. But it had been years since anyone had seen the oak struggle. It was usually the most resilient, the most peaceful part of the woods. Roy Sin, known for a gentle spirit and deep connection with the plants, stepped forward. "Let me go with you. I may be able to communicate with the vines, calm them down." "Yes, Roy Sin," Liam said, nodding approvingly. "You and Niall will come with me to the oak. We must find a way to clear the path and soothe the forest." The trio set off down the path that led to the elder oak, each step bringing them closer to a palpable sense of unease. Vines twisted and turned along the way, spiraling out of control and snaking across the forest floor. They could hear the faintest whispers of pain and fear in the rustle of the leaves, a quiet plea that seemed to come from the very roots of the trees. When they finally arrived, they saw the oak, proud and tall yet covered with thorny vines that wrapped tightly around its ancient branches. Its bark, usually a warm brown, seemed faded, and the leaves drooped as though weighed down by an unseen force. "Roy Sin, see if you can reach it," Liam urged. Roy Sin stepped forward, placing her hand gently on the bark. She closed her eyes, concentrating, reaching out with her heart and mind to understand the oak's distress. In her mind's eye, she saw the vines tightening and felt the pulse of something dark, something foreign, feeding off the oak's life force. "It's not natural," Roy Sin whispered, her voice strained. "Something is poisoning it, something bitter and angry." Niall's face turned pale. "Could it be the dark spirits from the shadowed grove? I thought we banished them long ago." Liam shook his head, his brow furrowing with resolve. "It's possible they found their way back, but we can't let them harm the oak. We have to remove these vines, no matter the cost." His words hung heavy in the air, and every redhead in the clearing felt the weight of the task ahead. This wasn't just any work, their vines were ruthless, sharp thorns ready to tear into skin, and their roots. Well, they seemed to have an unnatural grip on the oak, like their vines had formed a partnership with the tree itself. But the redheads weren't deterred. With a collective grunt, they set to work. They pulled, cut, and wrestled with the vines, their movements synchronized like a well-practiced dance, if that dance happened to involve a lot of thorns and scraped hands. Each tug met resistance, as though their vines had a mind of their own, twisting, snapping, and even giving the occasional sly scratch. But they didn't stop. They couldn't. Liam, ever the leader, was at the forefront, his strength powering through the toughest tangles. Right beside him, Roisin, the gentlest of them all, yanked at a stubborn vine, her quiet resolve showing that strength comes in all forms. Together, they, along with the rest of the redheads, fought not just for the oak, but for something more, the heart of their forest, and the bond they shared. As the hours passed and the sun climbed higher, the task began to take its toll. Hands were raw, blistered, and a bit too familiar with the sting of thorns, but they didn't falter. This was no mere chore, it was their duty, a responsibility held with pride, and the oak's fading pulse urged them on. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last thorny vine fell with a resounding thud, landing softly on the forest floor. A collective sigh seemed to ripple through the woods. The oak's branches stretched, the bark warming with a newfound life, and the leaves rustled as if whispering their thanks. Exhausted but victorious, the redheads stepped back. They had done it. In the soft glow of the setting sun, an elder redhead approached, a figure known for his wisdom in healing plants and potions, the forest doctor himself. His eyes softened as he took in their blooded, blistered hands, and a warm smile spread across his face. "You've earned your rest," he said, his voice soothing as he began to tend to their wounds. The doctor worked methodically, his fingers deftly applying a magical ointment to each injured palm. As he worked, he spoke, his tone a mix of admiration and gentle chiding. "The palms of our redheads, covered in bloody blisters. Can you even imagine the trouble you've saved us all from?" He shook his head, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. "Just think, what would have happened to our beloved forest and all its creatures if you hadn't stepped up?" A deep silence fell over the group. The redheads exchanged glances, pride swelling in their chests despite the weariness that weighed on them. They'd saved their home once again, and in doing so, forged an even stronger bond, not just with each other, but with the very forest they held dear. And so, the tale of the redheads paused, awaiting its next chapter. The silence was broken by the voice of the grandson, his wide eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Are they real heroes, Grandpa?" Grandpa's smile deepened, a glint of pride lighting up his eyes. "Oh, yes. Every single one of them. The redheads aren't heroes because of their size or strength, but because of their hearts. They protect the forest with everything they've got, no matter the cost." The young boy remained motionless, absorbed in the story he had just heard. His thoughts swirled, and a quiet resolve took root in his heart. When he grew up, he would protect something as fiercely as the redheads protected their forest.